สวัสดีทุกท่านนะครับขอต้อนรับเข้าสู่วงเสวนาฟอรัมวันนี้นะครับเกี่ยวกับแนวทางการแก้ไขปัญหาวิกฤตโลกและก็ข้อเสนอต่อ APEC 2022นะครับที่จะมีการประชุมกันที่ประเทศไทยเดี๋ยวการเสวนาทั้งหมดจะเป็นภาคภาษาอังกฤษนะครับผมจะเกริ่นเป็นภาษาไทยก่อนนะครับโดยกำหนดการหลังจากนี้จะมีการเปิดคลิปวิดีโอเพื่อให้ทุกท่านทราบจุดมุ่งหมายของการจัดงานวันนี้นะครับในชื่อวิดีโอว่า Letter from the Heart หลังจากนั้นจะเป็นการพิธีกล่าวเปิดโดยคณะผู้จัดนะครับจากประชาชนคนไทยผู้มีรอยยิ้มผู้ที่ทำงานเพื่อสันติภาพและก็มูลที่หมอเสมพิงค์พวงแก้วนะครับกล่าวเปิดโดยคุณชัชวาลพิงค์พวงแก้วและหลังจากนั้นจะเป็น Panel Discussion นะครับเกี่ยวกับแนวทางการแก้ไขปัญหาวิกฤตโลกรวมถึงข้อเสนอต่อทั้ง APEC นะครับทั้ง G20 และผู้นำโลกที่จะมาประชุมนะครับในเรื่องต่างๆและหลังจากนั้นก็จะเป็นความคิดเห็นของผู้เข้าร่วมนะครับแขกผู้มีเกียรติที่เราเชิญมารวมถึงสื่อมวลชนทุกท่านนะครับวันนี้เรา Facebook Live ผ่านสโมสรนักข่าวต่างประเทศหรือ FCCT นะครับผ่านเพจคณะกรรมการรณรงค์เพื่อประชาธิปไตยหรือครป.เพจเรื่องของเพจ Thai Korean Friendship Association ด้วยนะครับแล้วก็ฝากทุกท่านร่วมแชร์ในวันนี้เดี๋ยวหลังจากเปิดคลิปวิดีโอให้ทุกท่านดูนะครับจะเริ่มต้นเข้าสู่กระบวนการโดยผู้ดำเนินรายการหรือโมเดเลเตอร์วันนี้นะครับคุณฟิลนะครับ Member of FCCT จะเป็นผู้ดำเนินรายการกิจกรรมทั้งหมดในวันนี้นะครับเดี๋ยวขอทุกท่านต้อนรับและเชิญพบกับบทเริ่มต้นโดยวิดีโอ Letter from the Heart ครับขอตบมือเป็นเกียรติให้กับวิดีโอชุดนี้นะครับ
Brothers and sisters and world colleagues, at this time the world has evolved into a most worrying situation, reaching an inevitable crossroads of either disaster or peaceful prosperity. Nature has provided the world with all human needs, yet we do not understand it. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "There are enough assets in this world of us all." However, we continue to compete and fight to obtain maximum benefits, profits, assets. Some even go as far as ruling the world on their own. If only we understood Mahatma Gandhi's benevolent teaching, we will certainly find peace and prosperity. A choice that we might jointly approach is to ultimately reduce the cost of living to a certain level where we can coexist in peaceful prosperity. Arms race or military power should be reduced or stopped due to excessive soaring budget, amounting to 1,500 billion USD in 2021. With bigger military power, there is a higher risk of declaring war against one another. Our world, at this age of so many millions of years old, will be extinct within 1 hour. At the moment, the entire world is facing a multitude of problems and crises such as excessive cost of living, decaying environment, more and more violent disasters, uncontrollable pandemics, killing human beings in relentless numbers, present war in Ukraine, etc. Reducing or discontinuing military power is the answer, and use this unnecessary and excessive budget to improve the world economy and to solve crisis. If we choose to cooperate and use this path to solve world economic problems and crises, we will surely find a new world in the present world offering peaceful prosperity for the young and new generation. A seminar consisting of youth, middle-age, and old-age people has agreed that the world should maintain peace and harmony without declaration of war. It should contain forests, plenty of food, and clean air. The people living in this world should learn to share their assets and possessions. The cost of living should be commensurate with income. Military power definitely increases the cost of living enormously all over the world. We are at the moment exploring the universe. We expect to land on Mars as we have done on the Moon 53 years ago. This mission will indeed use an extraordinary high budget. Expenses will have to be borne among participating countries, which again will increase the cost of living of those countries. Which countries will gain the rights to possess the acquired planet? Or how do we divide such rights? Old problems will recur in fighting for territory. Who will be the second Mahatma Gandhi to teach us another benign lesson? Chuchawal Pringpuangkeo, team leader of the Institute of Nature, Sem Pringpuangkeo Foundation.
Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. My name is Phil Robertson. I'm a board member of the FCCT, and I wanted to thank you all for coming today. And thank you for joining in this very important event to talk about an agenda for APEC. This is something that has been brought together by our colleagues here, and we're going to now hear first from Dr. Chuchawal Pringpuangkeo, who is the team leader of the Institute for Nature for the Sem Pringpuangkeo Foundation. He's going to give us an overview of the situation here and also talk a little bit about the document and the book that is being launched today. If you have not received your copy, there are some up front, both in English and in Thai. I urge you to get one. So please, ท่านนะครับ
คุณฟิลครับ Thank you so much to give us an opportunity to meet tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I believe that this is a very good occasion which we have the opportunity to get together before the APEC meeting in Bangkok mid next month. Please allow us to come to the very important point, which the point that I like to state here is the future of our planet, which undoubtedly take priority over the economic cooperation. Can you imagine if the result of the meeting of APEC in Bangkok came out to be very successful for the world, and the very next day or the next week or a month afterward, a nuclear bomb have dropped to one spot in this world. So what is the use of the APEC effort in Thailand? At the moment, I heard that the Thai people will have to be responsible to pay $10,000 ล้าน นี่ภาษาอังกฤษว่าไงดีครับ 10,000 million? Yeah, 10 trillion baht. It will be vanished away if the world have to come to the conclusion of peace and harmony. This is how important, as the Thai people, as the host of this meeting in Bangkok, we'll have to help this world to start to have the peace and harmony first. At the moment, you can see that our world have come to a junction, a two-way junction. Either we have a gradual disaster, which certainly is a cause from global warming. That certainly will come if we don't solve these problems. And we need a cooperation around the world and also budget, which you have seen in the presentation that last year we spent $13 billion to build an arms race. Why don't we look at building a friendship? It will be much cheaper than building the armies, the Air Force, the Navy. If you understand that friendship is more important than the arms race, and it will be much cheaper. A lot of people said, how can we solve the dispute of the world at the moment? A second point that I'd like to present to you this evening is we are facing the immediate disaster, because let me go straight forward to the Ukraine problems. I believe at the moment, no people want to fight anymore. Can you imagine the winter in Europe, starting from Ukraine, which is not the severe cold country at all, but above Ukraine, without enough energy, there will be many, many people die, especially the old people who have the age like me. You can see that 2 weeks ago, Russia have offered, shall I start to help you during this winter? So we must find somebody who knows Ukraine very well and know Russia very well. If this guy can help, he cannot jump into the pond right away. He will need somebody to introduce and to organize the meeting between Ukraine and Russia. And this country can also help to start negotiation. With these 4 months ceasefire. And then as Russia have offered that they would like to supply gas and oil to the EU country. During that time, peace may follow. Let me mention again, everybody said this one is impossible. It is difficult. But I believe that the problem in this world can be solved anyway and anytime if we try. The difficulty, if you don't solve it immediately, it becomes harder and harder to solve. But when you start to solve the problems, that problem will become easier and easier and easier. So I would like to propose Thailand as the moderate countries to introduce this approach to the world. Why I said Thailand, why don't I say somebody else? But nobody in this world who have the same sweet smile like the Thai people. The Thai smile can help to put the people in this world together and try to solve the difficult problems. As I mentioned, if you often do it, it will become easier and easier, and then at the end, you may come to the success. So I would like to thank you, Phil, very much to give us an opportunity to meet among our international group in Bangkok. And I believe that in this APEC meeting, we may find some solution in order to introduce how to build peace and harmony in this world very soon before the first bomb drop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that important statement. This is the book that is being launched today, and I think if you have it with you, you can look at the introduction and you can see that there are 15 key lessons, 15 key recommendations that are being made by the organizers today. That these are the things that they want APEC to take up. And it's important because often you find a report and they don't really state at the outset what they're all about. But this is very clear. These are the clear proposals. And we're going to hear from a distinguished panel to talk about the book and the ideas within it. And I'd like to introduce, have our three next speakers come up to the podium here to speak about the various aspects of the proposals that are contained in this book. So if you all can please come up, Dr. Gwin, Kun Prida, Dr. Pakorn นะครับ เชิญครับ So the book it is called How to Solve Crises, This World, Next World, New World. And there are various aspects of it, as I mentioned, that are contained in those 15 key points in the introduction. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Gwin Pringpuangkeo, who is the chairman of the Pringpuangkeo Foundation. And he's going to speak about working with nature and how to change the world. So it's over to you, sir.
สวัสดีครับ From the serious but peaceful note you heard just now, I've been given a job to talk about nature. And nature, you can talk about millions of years of nature, but we have 5 minutes. So nature is intelligent, is a caretaker, is a giver, but it needs its balancing act to be intact for continuity of mankind. Pringpuangkeo Foundation helps orphans who suffered from HIV or those who come from poor background, who have not enough money to study. So in all our lives, it's always about helping. So of course, today is about what we can do to help the next world that we're going to live in. The next world that we need to talk about and emphasize about is it's the bio side of the nature. Today we've had serious talk about the war. I've introduced a foundation which is about helping. But the biggest thing that we often don't recognize is the nature around us and how big it is, how intelligent it is. You can sweat, but you can't take water in through the same skin. Right? Your healing wounds come into act when your skin breaks. Who's behind all that? Nature is far bigger than we think. So the government obviously has picked up the BCG theme, but it's still a long way to go, and we need to focus on that big B. That B is about bio, being clean, being green, and biodiversity to create energy, furniture, medicines, everything else that we can think of without creating more waste. The biggest problem we have in Thailand, I think, in my mind, is waste. How can we solve our waste problem to really benefit from working with nature? So unless you understand nature and you live and work with it, your next world will not be here. We hear from the APEC meeting that the APEC Business Advisory Council asked for the same thing, the peace process. Due to the financial pressure and everything else, people sometimes have no way out. We're lucky in Thailand. We have everything under the sun working for us, but we're not working with it. So I hope when we do start to wake up and work with the nature around us, we can enjoy ourselves, make businesses, because the business world is already waking up with the carbon taxes and everything else. Lastly, we believe that when people have conflicts, it's because they lack understanding, whether biologically, chemically, physically. But the way to solve it, it has to be based on spiritually. You don't help each other, you don't understand each other, it's the end. You're not going to go into the next world. You look at nature, you learn from it, we may live with it. So I hope it's just an opening to discussions for this evening, and I pass it on to Kun Prida. So please, Kun Phil.
Thank you very much. I was going to say, obviously, that time is elastic here, so obviously if you have more to say, you can add that during the part afterwards. I know that we want to try to keep the time, but ultimately, the messages are important enough here that we should take the time to share them. And thank you very much for what you've said about the nature issues, which are critically important here. Now I'm going to ask Kun Prida Tiasuwan, who is the chairman of the Social Venture Network Asia, Thailand, to speak a bit about key issues relating to finding solutions through diplomatic negotiations to stop an arms race in the outbreak of war, which is a very weighty topic, and also a new type of socio-economic system. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Phil. And nice being here. Thank you very much. About 2.5 weeks ago, I was giving a speech in Bhutan on the occasion of gross national happiness. This is my 4th time there in the last 7 years. I didn't prepare any speech. I was speaking in front of 250 people who came from 44 countries. For me, it's a piece of cake. I conclude my speech by talking to about 3 drivers who were assigned to me while I was there, because they're all the same. Their attitude, their value, the way that the body language and all that, so on and so forth. It's so reassuring when you talk to them that 3 is enough sampling for me to give a factual presentation. There you have a very close-knit family, what you might call extended family. They still keep it. All of my drivers live no more than 2 kilometers away from their parents. So you basically see his parents every day. That is a kind of society whereby people are looking after each other because they are warm, they feel secure, they feel that they have to look up for each other. Yes, Bhutan is the last Shangri-La. If any of you have not been there, I do recommend, and they only allow 7,000 people to visit each year for good reason. Anyway, to prepare the speech here is a bit different, because in the real world situation, we have a war. We have a war with us, clearly said by the Queen of the late Queen of England or Britain that global warming is the most challenging problem or disaster that human beings have ever faced in human history. And she said that quite a few times. So I've been working on global warming for 24 years, 25 years already. From the beginning as a disbeliever that my house will be under the water in 2050. I live in Sumut Prakan, so I would be underwater the way we're going right now. And that's a real war. Because it's not only be my house, I think it's everybody here who somehow will be impacted, more or less. A bit more in our region because I was told by the former or the late managing director of World Wildlife Fund 24 years ago, Mr. Russell Train, who is a right-hand man of Duke of Edinburgh. Actually, he took the job of Duke of Edinburgh once the Duke has retired. He came about 24 years ago and presented us with a 16 years statistic of setting up a monitor in the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii. This is a very virgin island that there's no plane flying over, and you cannot get a motorboat there. You have to go by windboard or going like that. 16 years record was perfect in a way of the carbon dioxide was rising. It's the perfect steps. You know the Amsterdam steps. They're very, very steep, right? It goes like that. And you can predict that what's going to happen in year 17, 18, 19, 20. So that is really an evidence that is really non-disputable. Do I have time limit?
Yeah, you can go for a little while. Let's go ahead.
So I haven't quite started yet.
Take another 5 minutes. That's fine.
Oh, quite, okay. And he just told me that this is the reason for the disappearance of the species, the species, important species on Earth. And we, the World Wildlife Fund, 24 years ago already has spent half of their time trying to look after the other new species that are about to extinct. They're called human beings. So of course, 50 individuals that were there for his presentation were spooked. So we begin to study, and of course a lot of study came that, there's a lot of professor here that don't believe it and all that so on. No, this has happened, and it goes away and all that so on and so forth. But today, nobody will disagree about the disaster that is forthcoming. So this is the war that we have to fight together. In theoretical terms, every one of us sitting here will have to produce zero carbon by 2050 to keep the world at 1.5 centigrade, right? Rise. Because if we don't do that, it will go beyond the limit that human can survive in a certain places. A certain place will be too hot and you just have to leave, that. He was predicting that in 2050 there should be about 100 million people dislocated from where they live, especially in the topic of cancer, because the water that is melting from the North and South Pole will come together in the topic of cancer, and Thailand is 6 centigrade over the cancer, right? And so this is why he come to us. He's telling us in advance that if you don't do anything, your group are the first people to go under the water. So this is a very serious problem for all of us to work together This is the war. This is a real war. Unfortunately, while I was working and while I was feeling happy as I work along and all that, I was working with the United Nations for the last 20-odd years. I signed a global compact and then go on and help them coming up with this social development goal 17, which you probably call it sustainability in short right now. And that has been the whole plan, that from global compact to sustainability crawl, it will help unite the people together with the common goal of fighting the real war. But somehow, Mr. Putin of Russia thinks differently. On the 24th of June, of February, all of a sudden, the war started. Or if I may say, the invasion started. That would be more correct, isn't it? I'm very sad. I'm very, very sad. So we have moved from a position whereby we were actually working, started with a global compact to sustainability and all that, in order to create what I call the hallelujah world, where we can all work together. But somehow, our friends in Central Europe decide to go exactly the opposite. So we have a problem that we're not yet even really start properly to amend it in the global warming. Now we have a split world. We have a world that we are moving toward the second Cold War. And I am the kind of, I'm the people who actually was born and gone through my growing life in the first Cold War, which went on for 30 years, something too. So I know what it is. And if that really happened, from economic front, we already see the inflation on the first round of the sanction, which is really small. I mean, talking about the number of oil or gas coming from Russia or wheat or whatever. It's a very small part of production of the earth, but it still hit us tremendously. I mean, all the countries in the world is facing about 10% of inflation, almost 1% a month increase in consumer products. So this is very serious because it's go against what we should have done. Instead of fighting the real war, we're creating another war. So we have to finish this so-called another war in order to come back to address the real war. The economic disaster will be so enormous because we will split into two camps. And both camps will perform what we call sufficient economy, meaning that they would try to be self-sufficient as much as possible. They would try not to do business with the other group because they just don't trust each other. If I buy from you this water and all that, all of a sudden you cut it off, and I die and all that so on. So this is a situation that will occur. On the social front, you already had unnecessary hatred between the community of the world with the Russian. I have a fantastic friend, Russian friends, who every time you speak, he smile politely, like the Thai. And he doesn't think about the war. He couldn't believe that it happened. So all of us want to go to Red Square. All of us wanted to go to St. Petersburg to visit. It stopped all this so-called social visit, so-called cultural exchange and all that, which is really sad because the last since the last Cold War, we have really advanced a lot. And I don't know, all of a sudden, this is all collapse in front of the war that we need to come together. So, again, speaking of the fact that each of us are being pressed upon by 15,000 nuclear warhead. It's about right?
ประมาณนั้นนะครับ
ประมาณนั้นนะฮะ Reason why I was so happy in Bhutan was because I know with the 70,000 population, nobody will want to put a nuclear bomb on them. So I was so happy when I was there 1 week. We are turning into a peaceful society that we have built after the end of the 90s, and we wasted it, and we're going back to prevention, we're going back to protective, we're going back to animal instinct. And it's such a pity, and we all need to reverse this to come back to fight the climate change war. So, you know, I mean, anybody, I mean, Chuchawal was talking about anybody must help to try to stop this war. It cannot expand.
Yes.
So, you know, no matter you are United Nations, no matter you are ASEAN as a group, or I don't know, please help. This war is not needed. We need to really be together to have peace, to form a partnership to fight the global warming. So please help. Thank you.
ขอบคุณมาก Yeah, I mean, as I was listening to that, I was thinking, you know, as we have all these countries gathering at APEC, you know that one of the core issues that is going to be discussed at APEC, and one of the big issues that the media is going to focus on, and that is going to be an ongoing sort of issue of contention, is the Ukraine war. Instead of talking about climate change and talking about decarbonization, all these things, the primary issue at APEC will certainly be the Ukraine war. We know this, especially if Putin shows up. You know, they're going to be, say, Putin versus, you know, the U.S. vice president, and it's going to be, you know, again, construed as like almost like a boxing match. Instead of a major gathering of countries that should be focusing on climate change, nature, and other these things. I was thinking about this, actually. I just want to give a quick aside. My mother is 83 years old, and she lives in Falmouth, Massachusetts, which is in Cape Cod. And from the house that was built by my great-grandmother in 1936, you can see the water. It's about a stone's throw, and that house actually is on a bit of a hill. It was built up a little bit, so it's never been flooded by a hurricane. Many typhoons come in, but they've never been flooded. But my mother is sending me emails about global warming because she thinks that the moradok, the inheritance of the house, will be at threat in 20 or 30 years. My 83-year-old mother is thinking about global warming. So, you know, you have to ask yourself, what are the world leaders thinking about? Do they have some place that's within a stone's throw of the water that they're going to be thinking about this is going to be flooded? Do they live in Samut Prakan? I do. Which is going to be flooded? I know you do, but Joe Biden doesn't. So, in any case, as a bit of an aside, it's an issue to, you know, are we talking about the wrong things at APEC? You know, that's the sort of thing when you look at this proposal, you know, it's a much more cohesive worldview rather than like, okay, we're going to talk about Russia, we're going to talk about the Ukraine war, we're going to talk about some global trade, but you know, it's not really solving problems, is it? So, in any case, next I want to turn to Dr. Pakorn, Apaphant. who's the Executive Director of the Geo-Informatics Space Technology Development Agency, known as GISTDA. And he's going to talk to us about venturing to a new world. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Phil. I'm kind of I think new face here. Pakorn, Apaphant from GISTDA. A brief introduction about organization. Our organization is a government agency who work for space and related technologies, and we want to make sure that we can make use of the technologies for the social benefit and mankind benefit properly and the most we can do. And I think today, just want to share some point of view. I think we discuss about the problems that human facing today, and I think it's kind of hopeless when we talk, when we listen to Gwin. We're gonna have big war, we're gonna have very bad climate change or so whatever. And yes, of course, I think we think people in this era dealing with kind of disaster, flooding and many things, and also climate change. And you never know, you can get snow anytime in Thailand, and you can get very warm weather in US anytime. And what is about space technology and how we can, space technology seems like it's too far away. It seems like about astronaut, about the moon or Mars or whatever, but not. In fact, we try to make use of space technologies for how to help people to solve the problems on the natural disaster or any natural problems that we are facing today. And I believe some of you guys may be familiar with application of the space already. In fact, the space technology is not only, like I said, not only about astronaut, about the moon or Mars, but it also related to communication. It's involved with the information. When you're taking pictures, you can get image from space. I think you can get from bird's eye view. This is not only bird's eye view, but we can also get the information through the image. Because when we take pictures, the sensors gonna take better than your eyes. They can know what kind of information, what kind of climate, what they have in between atmosphere. You have carbon, you have rain, or so whatever. And that we call monitoring. We try to monitor, take image and monitor, and then we mapping. That body work. Once we take the pictures and then we monitor, we map, and we try to differentiate what kind of particles that we go through until we on Earth. And then what on Earth, we have flooding, or you have whatever change in what they change it on Earth, because we're taking image every day. Taking image, we have more than 10,000 satellites on the space right now, in the space right now, and we're taking image and we communicate to, we can transfer information to communication satellite and to network. Then once we have those information, we make use of mathematical model and to see how we can handle and we can manage the problems. That we, scientists and we call ourselves scientists or engineers, try to help people using technologies on that. And I have some example. From satellite, we can differentiate, we can find how the ice is melt, and how it, water is make a flooding, or we can monitor the soil moisturing, and many information that we can get from satellite image. And then another example, in Thailand, we also make use of the satellite image to find the carbon stocks. To find, from satellite we can find how much carbon that each trees can stock, can consume and stay there. And this information help a lot, for country that need carbon credit and a plan for carbon credit. And these technologies and this method has been used for many countries and is international standard. This idea, like when you know about carbon, when you know about climate change, and you plan for that, and I think you can make use of the space technologies to make your life better, make your city more nicer, and I think you can have more hope on that. And from space information from space, and we can plan for the making use of the information from Geo-Informatics, is so-called GIS, and plan for the smart city and make your life more happier. And but for the space information or GIS information, you cannot work alone. You need cooperation. You need coordination. Right now, we have many type of coordination, international coordination. Like we go through UN, we have regional coordination, and we have a bilateral coordination. Why? Because technology is not for only our country. We need satellite from many countries. One satellite, when it's rotated around the Earth, it comes to the same place every 2 weeks or 1 week. But if you need information every day, you need coordination. You cannot invest by yourself alone. You need friends. And that's what we do in the space community. We have several forums that we work on. Believe it or not, there's a forum called Community on Earth Observation Satellite. It's coordination between NASA, ESA, JAXA, or even Thailand, or GISTDA. It's about 45 agencies who work on make use of Earth observation information to help people on their problems that we touched on my first page talk. That this year, GISTDA Thailand is becoming chair on this committee, and I think we're gonna try to prioritize the world problems on the carbon credit, on the how to make use of space information, space image to get the information about carbon credit. And we also try to sharing information and sharing human resource to make use of the sharing technologies, and then we can get information together and solve the problem for human being. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to actually open the floor for some questions for this panel. If people have particular questions that they'd like to ask, please use the microphone in the back right here and introduce yourself, and please let us know who you're directing the question to. We'll take a few questions now, and then we'll move to our second panel. Matt, please go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Eilert Rostrup. I'm from Norway. I don't see your name now, but I was happy that you made reference to the development goals, to the SDG goals. And if I'm not wrong, I understand, I think all of us understand those goals as exactly an expression of our collective way of responding to the question on this book, how to solve the crisis. And that's agreed by countries, by people, by social movements, by grassroots all over the world. So that's the aspiration we have. We want to solve that, the diverse crisis. And the one particular SDG, which we know we have a complete shortcoming on, is to minimize and to turn around the inequalities, global inequalities. The others, we are making some small steps in the right direction, but in that particular one, we are not moving at all. It's becoming worse. Between nations, between people inside nation, perhaps it's not the geographical north-south anymore, but it's a financial, economical north-south within our societies. We are not reaching anything on that one, which leads us to consumption, to increased militarization, to increase the exploitation of nature, and as long as we don't morally, politically, economically, and systemically address really the issue of inequalities, I think personally that we sort of put some small improvements here and there, but we don't come to the core issue. And I would like to hear from you whether what we hear all the time, that to save this world will mean a systemic change, and what that fundamental systemic change means, except for starting really seriously to address the global systemic inequalities. Thank you.
Okay, turn come.
Thank you very much, Adrian, for your question. The SDG was announced in 2010, become effective on 2015, when the Millennium Goal finished in 2015. The sustainable SDG started. When we signed, I was among the 50 people who was invited by UN to go to Davos in 2010, in February, to sign this. When we signed it, I remember there was only 12, but the inequality has been there from the beginning. Now, the rest, apart from inequality, the rest, if you look at it carefully, is about asking the governance of the nation to oblige by the minimum standard of human right. Minimum standard. Because people that you govern has a right for clean water, clean air, equal education. This is very obvious. You know, at that time there were only 11, you see. But the inequality one is probably the most difficult to explain. But yes, that is the core. Because if you don't have equality in the acceptable level, I'm not talking about we are all going to be equal. That's not possible. But a certain amount of equality has to be there, that we can have a peaceful society. Now, I said peace because peace is actually number 15, right? It's only when you have peace among the people of the world, and one of the most important criteria is equality, then you can progress from peace into partnership, which is a 16. And then you can prosper together, which is a 17. So yes, you're right. That the whole ploy of this SDG was actually from Global Compact already, is to proceed to get the world to come together to fight the global warming. And inequality is the most important part of that. It's the most, if you like, most abstract, most not clear. Okay? Does that answer?
Does anybody else have something to add about global inequality? Coming in?
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. Sawadee khap, good evening, panelists. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Pakorn.
Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. Imtiaz Maqbul. I'm a local journalist. I'm a life member of the club. I cover the travel and tourism industry, but my specific question is on the focus of APEC. APEC itself was set up about 25 years ago as a forum for promoting free trade, globalization, investments, free movements of people, goods, services over the years. An evaluation of that basically will show that it has probably not fulfilled all its objectives. And the fact that we are sitting here today discussing these issues in a way proves that. So the question is, the support that APEC has received over the years has primarily been to promote the interests of the multinational corporations, and with Asia than the rise of Asia 25 years ago as being a major ground of that. And the whole idea at that time was to try and promote the liberalization, deregulation, privatization of countries like China, the ASEAN region, the Mekong countries, India, which were seen as markets, consumers, mass consumers, 3 billion people in the Asia-Pacific region. The question to the panel is, at what stage do we make the APEC governments accountable for the failure of this entire exercise? Because it has clearly not done the kind of good that it is supposed to have. And as your focus is going to be on APEC and making them reverse course in some way, how is it that we can actually make them accountable for these particular failures, and particularly the role of the transnational, multinational corporations, which have made really good money? And a follow-up to that earlier question about their own CEOs making huge packets of money, while large parts of the population in this part of the world still remains mired in poverty. So just an evaluation, some kind of accountability, some kind of check and balance mechanism, and the role of the multinational corporations in the disaster that is now unfolding in Asia.
Who would like to answer?
They're very difficult questions to answer. The question isn't about accountability. The question is about the way out. It's like asking yourself, whose side are you on? It isn't important whose side you're on. It's more important to get to the table and say, what do we do? Accountability in a good practice would result in good productivity. But I think we're in a crisis, whether it's economic one, nature one. People need to talk, exchange, and everything starts with a spiritual giving and understanding. The more you talk, the more you listen, the more you discuss, you may find a way. Sometimes accountability is very good. Sometimes listening, talking, finding a way, what is the way forward as an agenda is the only way that I can see. Yes, you need the peace process before you have the next world. And you know, I ask myself the same question: why do we pay for the same thing with different money over the years? Why is that? I'm a scientist. You ask nature, how much does it take to raise chicken in 1900, 2000, and today? It probably gave you the same answer, the same, whatever it is. So nature for me is a bank. If you understood nature to be your bank, and you work with nature, and you use nature, especially the bio part of it, because we're all bio, and we're life. With that, you start talking about that, you may solve the problem. Sorry if I don't answer the question, but I hope it's one way of getting there. Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I mean, I'll talk about accountability. I mean, the fundamental problem is that many of these international corporations have become more powerful than governments. And so when you start talking about dealing with APEC and dealing with governments and dealing with issues related to global warming and decarbonization and peace and all these things like that, you also have to start talking about a sort of separate group of other organizations, which are these companies. Meta, Facebook, how powerful are they? Twitter, you know, we see Elon Musk showing up carrying a sink into Twitter, you know, saying he's going to take it over. You know, major organizations, major companies that have supply chains. I mean, these are external actors beyond governments that governments are supposed to play a key role in sort of controlling and regulating, whether it be on human rights grounds, whether it be on environmental grounds or things like that. But most of the times the governments aren't doing it. So, I mean, it's almost you have like a sort of like a separate group of entities that you have to also sort of compute into whatever sort of change you want to create. You know, this goes to issues of inequality, it goes to issues trade, goes to issues of environmental issues, goes to issues of human rights, all these things. You know, I mean, it's very interesting. We see many times these companies are the ones like behind the scenes with the corporate suites sponsoring these major meetings and things like that. They're very adept at the influence game. And to be honest, we at the grassroots, we, you know, putting together booklets like this, talking at the FCCT, we're way behind. We're not catching up to these people. We have to figure out how do we hold them accountable, how do we encourage governments to hold them accountable, but we're not doing it. So, you know, that's part of the agenda as well. You know, APEC has always had a business advisory group. It's never had a labor advisory group. You know, so, you know, I think that it's important to look at these companies as well and what they're doing. And if they're doing something that is against what we determine to be the common interest because we basically are talking to grassroots groups, then we should say something about it. So, okay.
And all their tax money is landing up in the tax havens.
Yeah, exactly.
Phil, sorry, just
Please, Chenkap.
don't mean to add to the fire. The irony about the big corporation controlling. I'm a writer for this present antitrust law in Thailand, which is creating a lot of problems. I didn't do it. It's just that what I have written with my friends, with my colleagues, has not been used or has been twisted, turning, getting the wrong people into the job and all that, so on. This country is the worst income distributor for the last 7 years. We were number one, the worst distribution of income in the world for the last 7 years. How does that happen? Again, the governance and the business together.
Yep. Okay, well, give a round of applause to this panel here. Thank you very much. Oh.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question.
Oh, Dominic's going to ask a question. Okay, go ahead.
Well,
we have another panel to come, but you can ask the question.
I'll
go
just
ahead.
get one in now.
Right.
I hear your criticisms of the corporate world and Facebook's conduct in Burma and the Philippines has been absolutely appalling in terms of the misery it's inflicted on people. But I don't think you could accuse Twitter, Facebook, Instagram of invading other countries. They're just not in that game. They may be incompetent, they may not be able to regulate themselves. We have got two black holes in the world at the moment. One is Ukraine, and one is sitting right next door in Burma. And these are countries where the leadership has done something grossly irresponsible that is not in the interests of any human beings that live there, is not in the interests of the regions they occupy. These are extremely dangerous individuals. We have one person who made the decision in Russia, his name is Putin. We have one person who made the decision in Myanmar, his name is Min Aung Hlaing. These people are not reasonable, they do not negotiate in good faith, they do not come to the table. So there's a lot of fantasy being discussed here. The question really is, if you are a Ukrainian and the Russians invade and destroy your country and rape your women and torture your men and blow everybody up and destroy your infrastructure, what do you do about it? Do you say, oh, well, we should talk, this shouldn't be happening? Or do you defend yourselves? And this is really the big issue. And in the Ukraine, they are defending themselves. They seem to be turning things around. They seem to be speaking the only language that the Russians are prepared to understand at the moment. In Burma, we're seeing a very interesting situation whereby the ethnic minorities who've been at war for 50 years have finally turned around and said, well, maybe we should cooperate and deal with this military on a united front. And at the same time, you have the civilian population doing something about it. And so what I'm saying to you is I don't disagree with your arguments that we should all discuss reasonably and come to civilized solutions, but in this world it doesn't seem to be happening. And people who are put in this position have the right to defend themselves. And that's what we're seeing at the moment, and they should be applauded. And the sooner all these wars end, everybody agrees about that. But the idea that it's all, conspiracy of international business.
Is there a question here?
No, it's a statement, and you're all welcome to shoot me down. But I just think that the whole debate needs to be balanced a little bit and brought back to the real world and the terrible situations that we're all confronting. So, yes, sorry, it's a speech. If I was moderating, if I was moderating,
do you
I
want
would
to
have
add a
stopped
question
me.
at the end?
Well, what do you think of that?
To end the war, you need to discuss. It may not be the top leaders, but somebody behind them, they have to start talking, because otherwise, how is it going to end? How's it going to end?
Anybody else?
But lovely statement just now. I think it's a good one. Yeah.
Well, I'll
just kind of follow up. World War II did not end with discussion. It ended by military victory. And I think most of us agree that the good won out on that occasion. I'm not going to defend wars that followed it, but the idea that you're going to just sort of talk and hope that peace will follow when people have just been slaughtered. Go and look at what's going on in Burma. They just, bombed 60 people at a concert.
But
it's naive.
It's
naive.
believe it's going to end with the same way? We may be
I
naive
think
in
I think
believing discussions is the way forward.
It might end in a military sense much more quickly. And then how things are discussed afterwards, well, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But the idea that we should all be talking and it's not working. That's not the way the world is at the moment. It's very desperate.
We shouldn't stop, though. We shouldn't stop talking.
Everybody should try and talk. I'm not arguing about that.
That's about tonight.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
how do we get results? How do we stop this? The consequence of the war in Ukraine is undoubtedly aggravating global warming. We all agree about that. We agree about more things than we disagree about, but I'm just saying I think you've got to take a cold, clear look at what's actually happening in the world and what is the quickest way to stop this violence. Quickest way in Ukraine is to get the Russians out, even if they're threatening nuclear bombs.
How do we do that?
It's happening.
well,
Look,
If it's happening, it's good.
yeah, go ahead.
No. I'm all for the peace process. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the problem is that, the reality is that there isn't a peace process in Myanmar. There isn't a peace process in Russia or Ukraine.
Sorry, ending it peacefully, I mean.
But there isn't a peace process in either place. So the question is, okay, the logical extension of this is there a peace process that's possible? And at what point does it become possible? It may become possible at some point where, for instance, in Ukraine, the Russians are enough on their back of their heels that they basically say, okay, we want to negotiate. With Myanmar, it could be that finally if there's a split within the Tatmadaw, that you ultimately have some sort of faction that's willing to appeal for peace. I don't know, but anyways, the long and short of it is this is the realpolitik challenge to your ideas of everybody can talk together, because often they're not.
So you have to try.
Okay. I'm going to exercise the prerogative of the moderator to move on to the next panel. But I want to, first of all, have everybody thank this panel for their contributions. Thank you very much. Now, the next panel, I'm going to ask Kun Thirarat Yingcharun and Kun Meta Matkau to come. Unfortunately, our friend and colleague Buntan Wirawongse, the Secretary General of the Human Rights and Development Foundation, is unable to attend, but Ms. Ladawan Pijab is being pressed into service to fill in for Kun ถูกป่ะเนี่ยก็เลยทำหน้าแบบเนี้ย Okay, เชิญนะ Okay, so I would ask the three of you all to kindly come up and อะไรนะ พูดไหนนะยูก็อยากพูด no ยูก็พูดนี้ดีกว่าเราก็เลยก็เป็น panel โอ้เนี่ยยูก็เลยก็เชื่อเสียงอยู่แล้วนะเชื่อเสียงอยู่แล้วนะครับนี่ ครับโอเคSo I want to thank Kun Ladawan for stepping in to the breach left by our friend Kun Buntan, who is unfortunately unable to join us. But he did send me a text to extend his apologies and hopes to speak to us sometime in the future. So moving forward, I would first like to ask Kun Tira, we're talking about this. This panel is going to talk about the proposal to the G20 APEC for Peace and Humanity. So we're talking about the 15 points that have been raised in this booklet. This is very important. And Kun Tidarat Yingcharan, she's the Deputy Resident Secretary General of the Thai Chinese Culture Promotion and Development Association. And she's also a scholar of the Oxford Thai Foundation. And the panel is, the floor is hers. So, Kun Tidarat, chen kap.
So we're probably going to start with a quick introduction about why we think we need to submit a proposal to G20 this time and also APEC. And then I'll go quickly into a few points, a few key points I think I'd like to submit to them. And then how we will go about actually submitting to them. This is something we discussed extensively pre the discussion today. So firstly, I think there's been a lot of highlight happening in this region at this time. Next month, all the big meetings will be happening in this region. Firstly, you have ASEAN in Cambodia, and secondly, you have G20 in Indonesia, and thirdly, you have, right after, which is APEC in Bangkok in Thailand. So a lot of world leaders are coming into this region, and a lot of these issues which will be discussed in all of these events, all of these meetings will probably be following up issues, probably be consecutive issues that people will keep asking the world leaders what they think about all these issues that have been addressed at these events. And for sure, I think Phil is right at one point that, for example, APEC, the theme of Russia and Ukraine, the war will probably going to dominate the whole meeting. I was just at Davos in May for Davos 2022. The whole theme of the discussion was about Russia and Ukraine. And I'm pretty sure, for other meetings, it will definitely be the same. But we also have something else that I'm pretty sure, the world leaders will be focusing on, whether that being in terms of US and China, Russia and Ukraine, of course. Also even in terms of Myanmar, at least, at the ASEAN level. Today we had a special ASEAN meeting on Myanmar, today and tomorrow, in which we did not reach a conclusion, basically. The 5-point consensus was still, I think only 1 point was achieved by maybe 50% of that 1 point, which is to provide assistance, to gain access to provide assistance to the people in Myanmar. And it was still challenging in terms of, the limitation, in terms of how they allowed the assistance to be provided to people in Myanmar. And secondly, in terms of the proposal to the key decision makers and the key stakeholders of G20, and also to APEC. I think APEC specifically, the theme itself probably speaks, in alignment with what I'm going to propose. So the theme for APEC this year is open, connect, and balance. So I think if they have the spirit of achieving the true, to actually be open, to connect and to balance everything, probably this proposal or these points should be achievable. Firstly, in terms of peace, I think that's something we have talked about extensively across the panel and also anywhere else too. Particularly in a smaller scale, in terms of Myanmar, what's happening there. Thailand has a close relationship with Myanmar. I personally have a close relationship with Myanmar. My father is a Myanmar refugee who migrated from Myanmar 60 years ago from Chan State. I understand very well from the family background and from personal experience what it feels to experience what's happening in Myanmar. But for sure, what I can say is nothing has changed much. what my father fled from 60 years ago is still the same and still happening today. The quite recent attack and a concert and recent coup, it has taken back Myanmar, I think, backward for decades. So I think, an appeal for peace would be something that's reasonable, also in a bigger theme in terms of Russia and Ukraine. What's happening in Ukraine, it's very saddening, given the level of severity, what they're doing every day, and there's nowhere in sight we can see how this can be stopped. So I think an appeal for peace would be something definitely that is achievable. And secondly, I think in terms of the cooperation for development, I think, when people are focusing on war, when people are focusing on conflicts, regional, globally, people forget the fact that we as humanity has to also evolve in terms of what's happening right now, whether it's post-pandemic, whether it's a current and upcoming economic recession. The cooperation for development should be something that should be discussed extensively, especially at G20 and APEC, with the bigger theme of APEC being economy and how to find economic solutions for various problems that we have. So that should be something that should be proposed for the stakeholders to consider. And lastly, I think this is something that's also agreed upon in the panel, which is sustainability. And it goes into deeper level in terms of sub-themes of whether it being climate change, energy transition, or in terms of even financial inclusion, in which the world is getting digitized and getting a little bit more developed every day. So in terms of sustainability, I know that APEC has a big theme of BCG, and in a bigger scale, other regional and global meetings also focus on ESG. So I think that should be something that should rapidly be considered and also achieved. Yeah, so in terms of proposal for G20 and also for APEC, as I said, firstly, it should be peace that should be achieved. Secondly, cooperation for development. And thirdly, for sustainability. I think after today, we're going to put together all these recommendations as a group of stakeholders and submit it directly to the people who are world leaders who are coming to APEC and also G20. I'm going there myself, so maybe I could very well be one of the representatives to submit these recommendations to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next I'm going to ask Kun Larawan to share her thoughts.
Thank you, Phil, for your inviting me to be this special occasion. Actually, I'm not preparing to be the alternate of Kun Bunthan, but anyway, because I have been involved with the peace process for many years with the human rights, and I'm also the steering committee of the Asian People Forum, which is the parallel forum that's going to be held in Phnom Penh during the beginning of November as a parallel event with the ASEAN Summit, which I think those important ASEAN Summit, APEC, G20, or whatever, why people, the group of people decide the fate, the way of living of people of the world. Why people of the world let this group of people decide our fate, our way of life? I think this is a very big question, and this is always happening. Since we have the world, I mean, maybe we have First World War, we have Second World War, and now we are looking forward to have Third World War. We are going to have nuclear war, decided by a group of people, and we let it be. Now we are the people of the world. We let the group of leaders decide our fate, and we let it to happen. And this is what we have discussed in our ASEAN People Forum. Why? Why we allow, why we permit the leader, I don't know why they become our leader sometimes, no? I mean, we have the situation in Burma. We have the situation in Cambodia. We do have the situation in Thailand now that we've been controlled, we were being determined our life by all a few of people. And we do nothing. We can't do anything. No, not, I may be wrong, no few. Because, you know, we are afraid many years. We know that we not allowed. ไม่ได้ใช่ไหมทำไม่ได้ No, no, we are not allowed. So there's a group of people not allowed this to happen. That's why we have this forum. That's why we have ASEAN Summit, ASEAN People Forum. That's why we have so many forums to discuss and fight back that we want to determine our life. I'm from the election, I'm working for the election commission. We know that election is just only the means, only the method, only justify the people in the government, but they are not really our representative. That is the problem. They never represent our view. They never represent our want, our needs, our problem. They represent themselves, but they use election as a means to be satisfied, to justify their ruler. So that's why we have to continue struggling. We have to continue fighting. We have to continue. I mean, not only discussion. For me, conceptualize to achieve people mind is very important. People never understand. No? I mean, I'm working with the villager people. I'm working with the Assembly of the Poor. They need to understand the ideology. They need to understand the situation. They need to understand the reality of the problem. Because when they make their decision in voting, they don't understand how this will affect their life. So this is going on, fighting, struggling, to bring people more awareness, to empower the people that they will be able to self-reliance. So this forum, I found is very important. That's why I'm here. And I happen to be here. That's why I happen to be the speaker. But I'm delighted to have chance to express myself on this occasion. Why? Because I admire Chuchawal, Pringpuangkeo. I admire the groups of attempt to fight upon this authoritarianism, upon this militarism, I would say. In Thailand, in Myanmar, in the world that is going on now. Because armless is the main issue. They want to have armed trade. They want to have war. They want to have fighting. So the arms can maintain, the armed trade can maintain. Actually, this reminds me when I listen to Chuchawal, Pringpuangkeo. And I was working with his father, Dr. Sem Pringpuangkeo. He is the very famous, very respectful person in Thailand. I was with him 38 years ago. That's a year of peace, International Year of Peace. He is the chairperson of Coalition for Peace and Development. When I was the coordinator at the time. Through his support, at that time, at that year, Coalition for Peace and Development got UN Peace Messenger from United Nations. Because we are working for peace, we are working for disarmament. And most of all, there's a small conflict that Thailand have with Laos, neighboring countries. And we attempt, as a small group of people, as a small NGOs, we're working with the people in Laos. And we can, at last, maintain the peace between Thai and Laos as a neighboring countries until now. No, we cannot reclaim our credit that because of our work, we can maintain friendship between Thai and Laos. But I believe that our small activity at that time, under the chairmanship of Dr. Pringpuangkeo, we can create a small bridge of friendship among the war, among the conflict relationship between Thai and Lao government. So this is a very important step that if civil society, if small group of people pursue consistently, insistently to work for peace, to work for betterment, I have hope that it can be achieved. ASEAN People Forum has been working on this, I think, more than 20 years. We keep on, and there are small steps that we can go forward. Yes, we cannot yet to overcome all the obstacles, but in this different small step, it opens alternative, it opens chance, it opens space. And I think through this effort, there are many improvements that going on. Like what we believe that even the Ukraine situation that we cannot see any hope, the Myanmar situation I have been working for more than 20 years. More?
มากกว่านั้น
เอามากกว่า
อยู่กันเลยก็อยู่ก็30 กว่า
ยังไม่แก่ขนาดนั้น
โทษทีนะก็ผมยังขาวยังดำอยู่
อย่าบอกความลับ He is not so good.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We still have hope that the people of Burma will fighting back. And they will going to have peace, democracy, human rights in Burma in the future. Maybe I take too long, huh?
That's fine.
That's fine, okay.
It's fine.
So,
what I would say is, look, having participated in multiple ASEAN People's Forums, which is the parallel People's Forum connected to the ASEAN Summit, okay? In many countries, it's just not permitted. Like in Vietnam, didn't happen. It was basically controlled by the government. In Laos, they said, sorry, out. We don't know how Cambodia is going to treat this. Cambodia is the chair of ASEAN in the coming month. 10 years ago, they pursued various venue owners to shut down the ASEAN People's Forum, saying you can't have the ASEAN People's Forum there. When the ASEAN People's Forum went to a restaurant, they shut off the electricity.
and maybe this will happen. We can confirm the venue only 15 days, before the happening of the event.
Yes.
Only 15 days we have preparation. We have chance to prepare.
So, I mean, what is very disturbing is that there's a number of governments in the region that will not even allow a regional meeting for people's voice to have an alternative agenda or alternative vision be presented. You know, there was a number of times when the ASEAN People's Forum was in Malaysia. It was excellent. It was when they had it in the Philippines. The Commission on Human Rights basically said, you can use our space. We took over the Commission on Human Rights. It was like a big party. It was like a concert. It was a festival. Everybody was having meetings. It was fantastic. So, you know, there's a great deal of creativity, innovation, and vision that exists at the grassroots within ASEAN that is not necessarily making it to the decision-making levels because it's being blocked, and that's a problem. I mean, when I look at what is being laid out here in the proposals, all these proposals based on like real persons' experience, right? But if you block real persons from expressing their views, it's a problem, and that's what we sometimes see. So, anyways, moving on, we're going to ask Kun Mehta to give his presentation, please. เชิญครับ
ขอบคุณครับ I would like to quote by press release about the peace and humanity by the people of Thailand with their Thai smile, Thai civil society and Thai Korean Friendship Association. I think about the APEC meeting this year. There are a lot of people will protest by the Assembly of the Poor, by Thai civil society, by people movement, and NGO coordinator for protest about the anti-neo liberalism and want to the green development and anti the capitalism by G7 by G20 and by the many countries the one world. By the way, I want to read the press release for peace and humanity on behalf Thai civil society for call for the APEC leader this year. The primary agenda for the APEC 2022 conference in mid-November 2022 will be open as representative of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation members from around the world will be in attendance, balance, connect, investment and trade, equalizing regional economic fusion. Following the COVID-19 incident, there is a put foreground that prioritize achieving harmony in on separate rather than maximizing profit to technical business practice that take the environment into account. Thailand has embarked a bioeconomy model in order to improve food security and agriculture for the benefit of its citizens. Circular Green Economic Model or BCG is the primary principle that underpins the circular economy and green economy. I have additional suggestions for the APEC leaders and Thai government leaders as hosts on behalf of Thai civil society at the Thai Korean Friendship Association as follows. First, the APEC meeting deserves that countries turn to discuss important issues that come together to solve the world's crisis, especially the Ukrainian war with leaders from the United States, China, and Russia joining together to find a way to end the war in peace. The meeting has prepared topic on various economic cooperation between Asia Pacific countries. Thailand ought to serve as a conduit to promote an immediate ceasefire, winter vacation, and avenue of communication to stop the war. Second, in the South China Sea, this puts the leaders of China, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, the United States, and ASEAN nations have come together to seek a peaceful conclusion, strengthening the peace and security of the peoples in the area by preventing it from turning into a sub-war. The third, states that are members of APEC must collect and prosecute the World Crisis Agenda on global warming and the conflict over multinational corporations' resource contention in order to find ways to achieve social and environmental responsibility for sustainable development that truly benefit the lower classes of society. Neoliberalism and the old economic system are not speculative developments. Only 21 nations and economic zones are members of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. However, several additional Pacific Ocean bordering nations are not connected. More nations should be asked to join in order to rekindle relations, including North Korea, Cambodia, Colombia, Panama, and all of Central America should to join together for Asia Pacific or APEC. This is a pledge related from me now on behalf of Thai civil society.
Thank you. I mean, I think one of the important points here is that you're talking about trying to expand APEC to be comprehensive, to have a truly, everything that touches Pacific needs to be in the meeting. And so it is kind of surprising that Colombia and Central America and some of these other countries are not involved. But I mean, it's very interesting that you have the global warming issue way down on the agenda. And so I would ask, actually, taking the moderator's prerogative, why do you think that APEC is like basically subsumed or not really sort of focused on this issue of global warming? And what should we be doing to try to urge them to recognize that this is a global crisis? I also would ask anybody who has questions to please line up behind the mic. There is going to be an opportunity to ask questions. People who want to ask questions can certainly do so. Please identify who you are and your affiliation, if any. So why is the global warming issue so far down the agenda? Why is it not at the top of the agenda?
Sure, I think this time there are probably other key priority issues. Doesn't mean, climate change or the related issues are not important, but seems there are more important and urgent, pressing, priorities. I also think that, as the world is moving forward, we also see that again at Davos and now and many other meetings that's happening too. They're really focusing on, as a sub-theme of energy transition. That's something that people are starting to discuss about it more, but not per se only in a theme of only climate change, but in terms of how that has economic implications. How would businesses be able to adapt and adjust in this world where, a lot of people are, moving towards EVs, moving towards clean energy, green energy. But I think that's also a little bit hidden in the theme of BCG, but it may not, be addressed directly in terms of, the pressing cause for like just only climate change. I don't know if other people have different angles to it.
The floor is open. Are there questions for the panel? Kun Franz, go ahead.
Thank you, Phil. My name is Franz from Indonesia, club member. I want to first thank you to Kun Nadawan to share your experience. Even you didn't prepare, but I learned a lot from your comment. I'm doing research on ASEAN, on the region. I want to ask you from your experience organizing the Asian People Forum, connecting with the civil society. I want to ask, what is your opinion about this disconnection between commitment and policy? Because if we see the ASEAN leader, they gather, they say, okay, we will make this region full of prosperity, involving everybody, help the country that has problem. But in reality, there's this connection. I don't say that many bad things, no. There are good things, but there's this connection. For example, if we talk about the dams, yeah, you see Laos has problem with many dams from the upstream. Also there's in China, but Laos also planning dams. And then we see Singapore buying electricity from Laos, and the electricity will come from Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, right? Then there's this disconnection, like how could you protect the region, or how could you develop the region together when every country think about my own interest first, And if there's problem okay, there's problem, but not in my backyard. My country should be number one first. So my question is that how we shift this competition into more cooperation, because you work with the civil society, right? So maybe that is one my question. Thank you very much. I really want to learn about your perspective. Thank you.
Shifting competition to cooperation.
Big question. Yeah, I think that's a very challenging of the ASEAN people. We have been talking about that because we consider that in the ASEAN Charter, the ASEAN focus on people participation. And it has been clearly stated there in ASEAN Charter. But what happened in reality? Another story going on. So that's why we have to pursue consistently that the government has to listen to the people's voice. And one of the main theme of this ASEAN People Forum is about civic space and the authoritarianism and militarism. It's very long, I cannot pronounce. I hope I pronounce it rightly. Civic space, that it will focus. And we have been discussing, we will not only organize the ASEAN People Forum as an event yearly and finish, go back home. We will continue engage with the ASEAN mechanism to let them know that the problem, the issue that arise, not only environment issue, human rights issue, economic issue, all the issue that happening, we will engage with the ASEAN mechanism. So this is our attempt, our path that we will have to go. Push through mobilizing the people of the ASEAN people to have engage, to be able to engage, have more space with the ASEAN mechanism. So one of the ASEAN People Forum, we invite the government also, no? We also open space for them to talk, to give us information to telling us what you are going to do to engage with us in according to the ASEAN Charter. Civic space, people space. What are you going to do? Are you going to listen to our voice? I think the Mekong River issue, the อะไรนะความเหลื่อมล้ำเนี่ยอะไร inequality, economic inequality. How are you going to tackle that? Economically, environmentally, all the issues that concern the people, Himalaya issue, the Burma issue. And I believe that because of the pursuit of the civil society, of the people movement, not only in Burma, but in ASEAN, that there are some shift, maybe small shift, that happening in the ASEAN policy. We can see the change of the ASEAN toward Burma. We can see the change. We never expect that the Cambodia, as the chairmanship of ASEAN, will issue the statement in according to the Myanmar issue. I think there's a very strong statement. And there's an improvement that they're not invited the junta, the Tabador, to be represented in ASEAN. I think this is a progressive step that happened in ASEAN. And we are looking forward that maybe there is small space, small improvement that happening through the process of this engagement between civil society and the ASEAN government. And we'll try. So that is our, actually we have been discussed seriously, and it will be our future, our planning, strategic planning, that we will go on engagement, not only yearly, but maybe monthly, and going on engagement with the ASEAN mechanism in the future. I hope I respond to your question. Am I?
I think you did. I mean, I would say, I remember very distinctly when Surin Tiasuwan was the Secretary General of ASEAN.
You're right.
And there was the ASEAN People's Forum at Chula.
Yes, yes.
And Surin Tiasuwan came with the foreign minister.
Yeah, he was there.
The foreign minister of Thailand was there.
Yeah.
And it was an open forum. It was probably 300 people. And they were actually answering questions from the people of ASEAN. I mean, that was the ideal. That was the idea. And what we've seen is that that ideal has been shut down by countries like Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Cambodia, will see if they're prepared to allow for the ASEAN People's Forum to even actually hold a meeting, or whether they're going to harass the venue owners, or whether they're going to shut off the electricity or do whatever. I mean, we've seen this before. So, I mean, you know, there's a fundamental problem that ASEAN, as a core part of the ASEAN, of APEC, doesn't necessarily respect the right of the people of ASEAN to hold a meeting to express views. And that's a big issue. That's a big problem. I mean, you're talking about people coming together for 2 or 3 days, a lot of different panels and discussions. You know, set out a committee, a working committee, to come up with a joint statement, you know, and that goes through a whole sort of collaborative process where people make comments and people say we don't want this and we do want that and things like that, and you know, all sorts of things are added and a few things are subtracted, but ultimately you come up with a statement which reflects the will of a meeting of 300 to 400 people from across the region who've all come together to express that idea to ASEAN. And the idea that somehow the ASEAN governments don't want to have that is profoundly disturbing.
But yes, you may right that they don't want to have, but they will have to listen
Well,
at last.
They
I
should
mean,
listen.
They
should
have to listen.
They should listen. They should listen, and that should be part of the APEC. I mean, there should be an APEC People's Forum.
We will have in the future. Maybe.
Okay, Yangina. Julian, I know you've been patient.
Julian Spindler, club member. That was my first question. Is the Royal Thai government going to allow any civil society activities during APEC that you know of?
Chen, come. Yes, please. Come here, please. No, come you, Nina.
The Prime Minister has already instructed the country to behave itself.
I think that's a very good question, yes. You can see in our country, we are sitting on an airplane now, all together. And the pilot is a security officer who drives, who fly your airplane. Would you like to take the airplane? I don't see any possibilities to go through the government to put this in the APEC meeting. You have to be frank to you. That's why I ask your people, you are a representative of people around the world. Do you see these problems, And shall we together propose this to APEC? Is that clear to you? Okay? And I would like to say another thing. Why this world have facing a lot of problems nowadays? It's very simple. They don't understand the law of nature. Gandhi have said, nature have provided everything for us, enough to live on. You don't have to fight. You don't have to, whatever ภาษาไทยบอกไก่ย่างภาษาอังกฤษ I don't know what it is. Struggle. Yes. And we misunderstand the whole situation in this world. Why in the eastern part of Australia has a flood of 3-4 meters high? You never have that phenomenon in the past. There is a flood in Pakistan. And a year ago, a flood in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. Can you believe it? Because we don't understand the nature and we cause the problem to this world. It's a very special phenomenon that happened nowadays is the global warming. Why it happened? Two things that you have to see very easily. One is we create so much heat in this world. We duct the oil from the tunnel under the world and burn it, and also gas. That's how the heat in this world help the evaporation of the water in the air. And then it becomes a rain. Now, if you ask me why they do that, do we have any alternative to solve these problems? Yes. I think Russia itself will run off gas and oil very soon. This is why they refuse to cooperate with the request from Western countries. They propose to decrease the gas and oil production by 20%. They know that it's going to run out very soon. There's a lot of press around in this world. Within these 15 or 20 years will be flooded. Bangkok is one of them. New York is one of them. London is one of them. Yes. our engineer in this world said, okay, we have to solve this problem by flooding protection. That is the most silliest answer for this world. Since you took the oil and the gas from the ground, now you left a big tunnel, a big, empty cave under the earth. You think that one of these days it will collapse? That is the nature who prepared this problem for us. The flood that can be deposited there. With the very simple system of gravity, you can store that flooding problems in that tunnel. It's very easy. Gravity down to that tunnel. One of my relatives who live in Malaysia, he has his business to stop anything after you pump the oil. He said this is very important, that anything underneath, it's a lot of changing, and he doesn't want to have that kind of things, coming up to the world. So his profession is how to stop, that kind of gas or that kind of undesirable things, to come up to this world. Yes. And a lot of people have said, we have that problem anymore. Nature will balance it. That empty tunnel will be filled with somehow, naturally. It never happened. Because as I said, you create the problems of the heavy rain, you have a flood in this world. Again, that's the empty space that you can store your flooding water. This is really easy, yes, to solve the problems. Yes. A lot of people may say, well, that is very difficult to do it. 3 weeks ago, Joe Biden allowed America to use their reserve oil, right?
Strategic, yes.
Yeah.
Strategic oil reserve, yes.
Where from? Salt Dome in New Orleans. See? Those empty area underneath has been naturally utilized to keep the reserve oil. Yes. So this is what I believe that at the moment, we do not understand the nature. That's why we're trying to solve the problems with our own thinking, without no respect to nature. You have said just now that these problems have to be solved by all of us. Can you imagine if we turn our world now to be a next world, you will work less. Why I guarantee you? In a factory at the moment, we used to have 100 laborers working, but now we need only 5 or 10. So there'll be less job for the people to do the work. So this is the change in this world, which we do not understand, that we will work less in the future. We will not have to work 7 days a week. We don't have to work 10 days an hour, but we will work less. So we have more time in order to think about how we can utilize nature to solve our problems. I really believe that what happened in this world always change. It never be stand still. But we have to think ahead of what's happening in this world, and we have to understand the nature and use the law of nature to cope with it. There was a say, very important. Nature is very ดุร้ายเขาว่าอะไรครับภาษาอังกฤษ Okay? Nature is very cruel, but very, very fair. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Julian.
If I could just, well, firstly, congratulate the foundation for having the nerve to take on the big issues of solving the world's problems. I understand that you were using the APEC summit next month as a focal point, but I think you just admitted that actually presenting your proposals to the APEC governments is probably quite difficult. I would say it's impossible, probably, and you are presenting your proposals to the wrong people because the governments of the world have proven quite conclusively that they are incapable of solving any of the major problems that the world currently faces. So I would go back to the grassroots and encourage the foundation to aim entirely their efforts at generating interest and energy in the people, because it is only the people that have the common sense and the uncorroded interest in surviving that will allow the solutions to come up. Governments cannot do that because they are self-interested and blind to anything except the next election. The people actually are the people who can solve the problems that you raise in this book. And if any of you have followed the development of citizens' assemblies, which is a new dimension of direct democracy, what we call in the West democracy today is not direct democracy, it's indirect democracy. And pretty much you can see that it's a complete failure wherever it is being tried. Elections or no elections, rigged elections or no rigged elections, it's not delivering the solutions that the people of the world need. On the other hand, citizens' assemblies, in their limited opportunities so far, will show you that collectively the common sense of randomly selected citizens, given the appropriate information, will come up with the most effective results to solve the problem.
Okay. Thank you, Julian. Okay, well, I'm going to say if there's any additional questions, the mic is open. See no takers. I will basically say that this has been a pleasure this evening to be involved with this effort to, sort of think out the core global problems. I think Julian is correct. The foundation deserves a great deal of credit to try to think about these big issues and to try to comprise all these things in a core package. So what I would say is I hope that you will be able to deliver this book to the various different decision makers at APEC. I hope you will be able to reach out to the various different embassies and others who are going to be, of course, staffing these delegations that fly in to take part in APEC. And I hope that you'll be able to, get your views across on the sidelines of APEC. There's no APEC People's Forum. Perhaps there should be. I know that many years ago I was involved in the APEC labor network, which struggled mightily and never succeeded in getting a sort of alternative to the ASEAN APEC Business Forum. There was an APEC Business Forum, but there was never a labor forum. But I think that there's a lot of governments who, if you approach, will be interested in these kind of issues. And I encourage you to do so. I wish you good luck. I want to thank you on behalf of the FCCT for coming here to present your vision, and wish you all good night. Thank you so much.